Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Will with Schedulefly, and this is a deep conversation. Van Nolintha, who is an owner at Bida, Manda and Brewery Bhavana, has been a friend for a few years. We filmed the story of Bida, Manda a couple of years ago. It's a great story. It's on our website. Amazing story. So we didn't get into that story, and we didn't talk a lot about Bida, Manda. We did talk about it some, but when we talked about his second project, Brewery Bhavana, and how that came to be. And this place is a very unique establishment. It's a combination of a brewery, a bookstore, a flower shop, and a dim sum restaurant, and somehow it works magically well. Go to their website, brewerybhavana.com. Bhavana is spelled Bhavana. Brewerybhavana.com, or check their Instagram just for pictures of this amazing place. We talked about that, and then we got into life and self-care and mental health and the issue of drugs and alcohol and the hospitality business and finding purpose and Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech. I mean, we really we just dove deep into subjects that you will all relate to. These are not, restaurant-specific tactics, if you will. This is, these are life issues, and particularly things that restaurant owners face. And Van is very attuned and dialed in to ensuring that he and his team have the right balance, have purpose, have intention, have love, have diversity, have appreciation for each other and the people they serve. Just a phenomenal guy. I have so much respect for Van. I learn tons from him every time I speak with him, and I am thankful that we had this opportunity. Y'all enjoy. All right, we are live. What's up, y'all? This is Will with Schedulefly, and I'm here in Raleigh today with Van Nolintha. Van is co-owner of Bida, Manda and Brewery Bhavana, and we're in Brewery Bhavana right now. So, folks, if you're listening, we had the fortunate opportunity to share Van's story. Van and his sister, Vanvisa, we shared their story for Bida, Manda on film a couple of years ago. And if you'd like to watch that, is it on your site? Is it on Bida, Manda's site?
I'm not sure. I think it is.
I think it is. I think it's still on there. If it's not, then come to Schedulefly site. We have it there too. So we're not going to get into the Bida, Manda story. We've told that. Since then, Brewery Bhavana has opened. And how long has it been?
We just turned 2.5.
2.5.
2.5 years.
Has it been that long?
Really, time flew.
Wow. So we'll talk. I want to talk a little bit about Brewery Bhavana, because this place is not what anybody that is thinking of a brewery in their mind. This is a very unique place. We're sitting here looking at fresh flowers, books. The design here is off the charts, fantastic. So, Van, let's talk a little bit about that, and then we'll get into sort of some mental health, physical health, work-life balance, telling stories, and all that kind of stuff.
The state of things.
Yeah, the state of things. But tell me about, because I remember you telling me about Brewery Bhavana, and you told me before this, you said, would you believe that we're going to have this brewery, but it's also going to have flowers and books and all this stuff? And I was like, no, I cannot envision that in my mind, but I'm sure, I remember thinking to myself, if somebody can pull it off, it's Van. So give me the backstory a little bit about how this all came together with you and Patrick and the whole story.
Well, I'm so glad that you're here. It's good to see an old friend.
Yes.
The genesis of Brewery Bhavana is an interesting one, because my sister and I are not, professional, or at least professionally trained chef. So opening more restaurants or more concepts has never been a part of our journey. What really got started was meeting Patrick, my friend Patrick Woodson, that just he and his wife were doing some time in Uganda working as Peace Corps volunteers. And they came to visit their parents. We met at Bida, Manda, and we really fell in love with each other's lives and our common love for the city of Luang Prabang, where I'm from, because Patrick and Aubrey took some time after Peace Corps and traveled around the world and fell in love with that city. So we shared this love for this place that Van Visa and I came from, and our parents are still there. So that relationship just evolved over time, and we really wanted to do something together. And Patrick, it's just a phenomenal brewmaster.
So you didn't know him before he came to Bida Manda that
no,
time? It was Laotian, and he shared, hey, I've been to Luang Prabang, and then that...
Yeah.
Okay.
It was
That's
table
amazing.
7, and
Wow.
I love sharing that story because I think it really captured the spirit of how this whole thing came to be. That when you zoom into each of the 4 offerings here, the flower shop, the bookstore, the dim sum restaurant, and the brewery piece, you begin to see people and faces and stories and relationships. Brewery Bhavana was never a concept. There's no reason why Belgian beer and Chinese cooking should be paired along with books on, self-care and flower shop. So everything that we do here has someone behind it that we really love, and we always talked about this is what happened when you put people that you love in one room and allow everyone to dream together, and the product is this living room for the city. We love getting to be a part of facilitating new relationships for people from all walks of life to have this third place, this common space, 9,000 square feet.
9,000?
To just be together and connect. So that's how it all came to be, was just a response to the relationships in our lives.
And so it's been 2.5 years.
2.5 years.
How's it going?
It's going really well. There's so many exciting things happening in Raleigh right now, including Moore Square Park.
Oh, it's awesome. I'll put some pictures of that up on the Instagram.
It truly is a remarkable moment. The park has been, under construction, but it has been over 10 years since the design process has been on the table.
Really?
And we have been working really hard telling the story of this neighborhood at Bida, Manda, now at Brewery Bhavana for so long. So seeing that whole neighborhood growing up and maturing and being loved and cared and being visited has been such a remarkable thing to observe.
How long was it being renovated? Was it renovated? I mean, it's been there a long time, right?
Yeah, a long time. I think at least 2-3 years has been, the park has been closed.
It's been closed. I mean, they had it fenced up and closed off, and it's beautiful. They did a great job. So, there's a lot of people over there right now, tons.
Yeah, families.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, okay, Van. So, as I told you, I really want to get into some stuff, not just the traditional stuff you might talk about with an owner of a hospitality business, but in terms of lease negotiations and hiring staff, but sort of the behind the scenes stuff. I mean, talk to me about, because you've always been dialed into, as you said, you've got books here on self-care. You've really been closely connected with your team's well-being. I mean, you with Bida Manda, you take them out of town for a few days every year on a trip. I've always just been so impressed with how aware you are of the importance of that, and I'm just want to learn from you where that comes from and what that means to you and why that's important and those types of things, because it's something that I feel like I'm 45 now. It took me a long time to really fully come to appreciate that. I'm still on that journey. I think you've been on a long time, and I've really learned a lot from you. So I'm just curious the genesis of your realization of how important these things outside of just what happens at work are for you and for your team.
Yeah, I think we spend a lot of time at the restaurant or in the industry in general, thinking about what it's like to care for someone.
Yeah.
at a giving night, we have a family grieving a loss. We have people falling in love at our restaurants. We have reunions. We have people saying, "I love you. I'm sorry." We a lot of things, a lot of life happen at a restaurant. And our job, if we do it well, is that we show up fully with all the nuance and complexities of who we are, and really show up to that guest, to that moment, to that experience. And if we truly are going to be a facilitator of some of life's richest, biggest moments for other people, caring for ourselves and truly being centered in our own journey is necessary. So it's not that somehow this is a side product of self-care, that life and work are different. But truly, if we are going to curate and facilitate life's greatest moments for other people, we really have to show up fully and whole. And how do we do that in the industry that can be transactional and transitional? I think we have a long history of really troubling culture in the industry. Late night, lots of drugs and alcohol.
Yep.
Cash. Self-care is not a part of historically how we approach this industry. But what we have learned over the past almost 10 years now is that a lot of people find themselves in the industry doing transitions, right? We have folks just graduating from college, waiting for that first 9-to-5 job. We have folks moving into town. We have a lot of artists that really see the restaurant industry as something that allow them to be creative on the side. So people are people are in transition. Mm-hmm. And if we're intentional about development and what does it mean to care for our team during moments of transition, that's pretty powerful. And I think we all have experienced that, right? When we are going through change, that's really when we are most vulnerable, positive and negative. So for a lot of our staff who are in their seasons of transitions, for us to set intentions and set goals and hold each other accountable for compassion and empathy, and that is a pretty enriching process and journey for us. I talked a lot about wanting to make sure that whatever or however long our time with our staff lasts, that they leave this place more courageous, more whole, more true to who they are capable of being. And the reason why we focus so much on personal development and self-care is because it's necessary.
How do you foster that level of vulnerability? That's a hard thing for a lot of people, isn't it? To be vulnerable, particularly around maybe people that you work with?
I think so. I think vulnerability is really hard for this culture in general, not just in the industry, but in the Western culture, because I think it can be perceived to be a sign of weakness.
Right.
I think vulnerability is a part of it. I think the larger conversation is how do we live a purposeful life?
Okay, yeah.
And it really starts with our interview process, for example, when we are sitting with our staff for the first time, asking why this is important to them, why being a dishwasher is important to their life process, why being a server is meaningful to their lifelong goal. And for some people, it's wanting to get to know the community better. For some people, it's wanting to practice patience. Whatever it is, if we somehow can identify what purpose looks like and what is meaningful to our staff, I think it's easier to ask for vulnerability and compassion and patience and generosity. But we have to create that space first of what allowing our staff to define for themselves what does success look like in this relationship.
Okay, that's what I want to ask you is the purpose portion of this. So many people don't sometimes know what their purpose is. They're particularly younger folks that may be often employed in hospitality, they're struggling with what their purpose is. It takes some of us a really long time to find that. Is it necessarily something that you're not looking for people that have that purpose? You're looking for people that are maybe searching, or both, and your job is to help foster that and maybe help people mold that. Is that right? Is that fair?
I think that's fair, and I think purpose can be a personal journey. But a lot of time, purpose is a sense of belonging. I think purpose is when you feel like you're part of a set of belief, a culture,
Yes.
Values. And our hope is that when we find people who share similar values that we carry, that along the way that relationship yield into, their own personal purpose, whatever it is that they want to do and achieve in life. But I think it begins with a commitment to one another and say, we believe that generosity matters in the world. We believe that self-care is important to this process, and believe that harmony and balance in life are sacred things in order for us to care for our guests. So I think it begins with asking our staff to see themselves as a part of something much bigger. And when that commitment is there, I think we both surrender to this vision, and everything else is a part of that process. But it really begins from aligning ourselves with one another through the shared values that we hold.
Yeah. It's neat watching the industry move more in that direction. That's certainly not the history of this industry. There was a lot of, just chefs known for yelling at staff and, sort of a top-down approach, and you really have a very different way of looking at it. And you mentioned the sometimes, you have the drug abuse, the alcohol abuse in this industry. It's hard nights, it's late nights, it's a natural fit. There is a guy in Charleston, South Carolina, Steve Palmer. He's a customer of ours, the Indigo Road Group, who started an organization helping to promote sobriety.
Yes.
Do you know about it? Is it Ben's Friends? Is that?
Yeah, I think it's Ben's Friends.
If it's not, folks, I'll correct it. But I just found out about that. I think it's amazing because now they're opening chapters in different cities. Like they started there, and now I think he was just in Austin doing their initial opening there, and that's such a healthy thing for this, and it's needed. It's very needed for this industry. It's wonderful to see owners like yourself, like Steve, and like so many others here in Raleigh that really are truly and genuinely and authentically more focused on those types of issues than the bottom line. I mean, the bottom line takes care of itself when we take care of these things in a lot of ways, doesn't it?
Yes, I agree. I think the focus is shifting now. What I do like to, I think it's easy for us to see these cultural, the cultural work that we do to be, that is just something that Van does, so that's something that Steve does. That's not what we do.
Right.
And seeing that almost as a goodwill project. I think it's important for us in the industry, in the community, to realize that this is not just goodwill. This is actually good business practice too.
Yes.
That when there is vulnerability and generosity and compassion and self-care, retention it's high, and people show up more professionally to work, and then we are able to get to the hospitality component of what we do because people are more heard and seen and cared for, and people build a career on this industry. So this is not just goodwill, but this is also good business practice, because we need to get to a place where it doesn't matter if it's a small family-run restaurant to a big corporation, that we see culture and community building as a part of why this industry should thrive, and not just something that we do on the side because someone believes that is important.
It starts with the smaller places and the independent places. I got to tell you though, Van, this is a fascinating concept to me, which is all my life in business, I've always felt like if you focus on the things that are not measurable,
Mm-hmm.
what you just discussed, the measurable things take care of themselves. But it is very hard, and particularly in this culture, in a Western culture, we tend to promote focusing on those. This is, there's first level and there's second level. First level is what can I measure, and as you grow, though, the challenge I think is, and I don't think it's just with hospitality, I think it's any industry.
Correct.
Banks or whatever it is. The more you grow, the harder it is to scale that type of focus, particularly because you get to a point where you have to start hiring in executives, and they're siloed with like these responsibilities and improving, profit margin or improving, and then then it becomes measurable, and then you kind of all that stuff gets. It's a really fascinating thing. It's why we literally, like, every single day we wake up, all five of us. I don't want this to be about Schedule Fly, but we wake up and we just say how thankful we are that we get to serve the people we serve, which are 99% are independent restaurants, and they're people like yourself that, they have 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 locations, but they're able to really keep that focus on those types of things, and we just feel so blessed for that, because I guess it's the same way, it's the same philosophy that maybe we have.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Going from Bida Manda, where we had 40 staff, to Brewery Bhavana, which is over 200, has been a really massive transformation. And we ask ourselves every day, what does it look like for us to maintain the culture and continue to do this work of generosity and compassion? And I think it's really possible. And I think what makes it possible is realizing that what we are serving is not beer, it's not food, it's not flowers, it's not books. What we are serving is a feeling. And if we continue to focus on what it is that we are serving, then I think it's possible to maintain the kind of culture. Again, because this is not just like a side project that we do. This is fundamental to who we are. It's
your foundation.
It's the foundation.
Yeah.
So it's really remarkable when someone leaves the restaurant and say, "Whoa, like we felt something."
Yeah.
And that's something, that emotional reaction takes a lot of work. It's not just by nature of doing good. It takes a staff that believe in what we do. It takes intentional. It takes accountability. We spent the past few months really working on what that looks like long term. We have been developing our leadership manual. What does it mean to lead and not just manage?
Yes.
We define, Simon Sinek is one of the lead thinker in this, that management is about the tangible, right? You manage data, you manage outcome, you manage profits. But leadership, it's a human enterprise. We are dealing with motivation. We are dealing with conflict resolution. Yeah. We are dealing with how do we create a culture where people become the best versions of themselves within. So we are taking our all of our leaders. We are having our very first institutional community-wide leadership retreat to Kingston this weekend, all 40 of us.
Oh, wow.
To really engage with that question of what does it mean to lead and not just manage.
Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K, right? I've seen some of his videos.
Yeah, he's really a remarkable thinker. I got hooked the first time when I heard him speak about his book, Start With Why, that we know what we do. Yeah. Some of us know how we do it, but rarely do we and institutions and community know why we do what we do. And what we are hoping to do at Brewery Bhavana and at Bida Manda is that we always begin with why. And from how do we set the table? Like, why is that table setting that way? You know, we talk about feng shui, we talk about energy, we are talking about this is our best offering to our guests.
Yeah.
So once we are able to articulate why we do what we do, and then communicate how we achieve that before we get to the what, I think so often this culture, we jump too quickly into what it is that we do.
Agree.
The management of things, the tangible things in life.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful. Kinston, huh?
Kinston.
Why Kinston?
I love Vivian. You know, I love what she is doing in that community, and I think
tell her about who Vivian is. I know who she is.
Yeah, Vivian. It's Vivian Howard is a chef from Kinston, North Carolina, a really really small town, and her husband Ben and their kids moved from New York after a very successful career in New York back home to Kinston to open a restaurant, chef and a farmer, where she sourced locally, employ locally, and really create this model of what it means to transform the entire structure and fabric of a small town through food and hospitality. And she has been a role model, a friend. So our very first retreat will be in Kinston, where we'll get to spend a lot of time with her and Sam Jones. And really allow our managers, our leaders, really to really connect what we do to a much larger, really campaign on how to do this work well, globally, nationally, and we are not the only one that's trying to do this intentional work well. No,
you're not, but you certainly are at the tip of the spear of this stuff, if you will. You're so busy. I mean, I follow you on you're. I don't know if there's just one you. Sometimes I wonder if you've cloned yourself, because you're all over the place. You do so much. You stay so busy. How do you, Van, find the balance to take care of yourself, physically, emotionally, mentally? Is that something you work on? I mean, is it? And there probably is not an. I mean, it's just but I just am. I ask myself that. I wonder, how does Van how does he do it?
I wish that I say I have arrived at balance and harmony. You know, I think the reality of it is that it's a process, and I think it's a journey toward balance and harmony that is worthwhile. That I think we'll spend the rest of our life in that journey of not arriving. But yes, this year has been an incredible year for me personally, as far as self-care. I think there was a moment a couple of years ago when we won a really big award, a national award. And I remember standing in and receiving the award, and I wasn't able to feel joy. I just looked around, and it was great, right? Our friends were there, our staff were there. It was such a tremendous moment, and a great achievement that so many people put into it. But as someone who has really worked hard my whole life to be really aware of how I am emotionally and internally and spiritually, I knew that the quality of my feeling didn't align with what that moment is asking for. Okay. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel excitement. I just felt flat. And I knew at that moment that some things have to change. The foundation of how I spend my time and how I care for myself has to change. And that really began a journey for me of what does that look like? What does that mean to make sure that I show up fully? If this work takes a lot of us to be fully committed emotionally. Sure. And if I lose that, that would be a tragic. So I have been working really hard over the past 12 months or so in being active physically. Yeah. And spending time doing a lot of writing and reflection about why we do what we do and what does it look like.
What do you do with that writing? Who sees that writing?
Not many people.
Okay.
I think it's really a personal processing, a place of processing. I'm fortunate that I have a lot of mentors in my life. So moments like that really ask me to reach out to those mentors and say, I need you.
Business mentors, personal, both. Who are some of your mentors?
I have a few. Dr. Janice Odom was the director of the scholarship program that I was a part of at NC State, called the Caldwell Fellows Program, and she really has become a friend and a mentor and a great place of resting and reflection for me. She asks really hard questions. John Replico.
Let me stop you real quick. What do you mean by she asks really hard questions? Does she make you? Is it a lot of the why questions?
A lot of the why questions,
Yeah.
and I think she. We met when I was 18 years old.
Okay.
And she has seen me change and evolve over time.
Yeah.
A good example, I was pre-med
Mm-hmm.
my entire undergraduate career, and I asked Dr. Odom to write me a recommendation letter to medical school. And that was the moment when she just came really strong and, really asked a lot of why questions on why is that, I think it's really rare in life when you have people that you trust and love you unconditionally while still are able to ask those really difficult questions. She's one of those people for me over the years.
That's true. That's somebody that loves you enough to put the mirror back to you to help you really understand why.
Yes. That's
a deep connection and a true loving relationship. Somebody that cares very much. Clearly,
it truly is a gift, and I'm grateful to have many people like that in my life.
Talk about, okay. So you mentioned physical, and I mean, one thing I've really started to figure out over the last few years is, once again, it's often not measurable, but it's helped me so much personally and professionally to force myself. It used to be forced. Now it's like I can't go without exercise.
Yes.
Sunlight, fresh air, peace and quiet, and good sleep.
Yes.
What do I consume? What do I put in my? I've really started to learn, like, you are what you eat, right? It's amazing how those things are. If you can, first of all, it's hard to get all that.
Yeah.
You kind of do have to work, because our culture and really there's a lot of forces pulling against that all the time. But gosh, I feel like if you can get those basic things down, and good friendships and relationships, I would add to that, that you take time for.
Yes.
You can do anything.
It's
like you're become a superhero almost. You know what I mean? Is that crazy?
It's wild that the foundation is what we don't focus on in this culture. And rituals have always been a really important component of my life, and it has been really helpful in this season of self-care.
Yeah.
Is to create a ritual that I can stand behind and that I can hold myself accountable for. So around that same time of discovering that I really need to work on self-care, I changed from, I'm going to work out 3 times a week to I'm going to work out every day.
Yeah.
And that changed everything for me when it goes from a choice to a part of your ritual, your rhythm.
Right.
And there are a lot of small things that I added to my daily ritual that has transformed into a lifestyle, that has transformed the way I breathe, the way I live, the way I process the world. That has become one of the most sacred things in my life, is identifying what small things do I want to add to my daily ritual. Yes. So it's not a choice.
Yes.
And walking has been a part of that. I've been walking and running every day since the commitment. Another thing that I have added to my ritual is spending time in my garden. And I have been growing
Awesome.
so many different things at home.
Yeah.
And I just forgot how much joy seeing life and, seeing things change from seeds to plant to flowers to giving it to someone. So I you asking about how I really ask and invite you to explore what are some things that you do every day that you want to subtract, and what are things you do every day that you want to add to your daily ritual, because those add up to be monumental life change.
Subtraction is something I'm very, very high on. Whether it's things you consume or things that consume your time that you do every day, removing things sometimes can be more powerful than adding, in the sense that there may be parts of your daily ritual that have become part of the ritual, but maybe you're not necessary or healthy.
Correct.
So removing is a big thing. I believe that, and you subtracting or keeping things simple is such an important thing. I mean, you clearly do that here. Like, everything in here is beautiful, but it's simple. Is that fair? I mean, is that something because I look around and it's just, I mean, like the taps there, that's beautiful. Very simple, very clean.
Yeah.
It gives you a calming sense.
Yeah, I think simplicity is some of the hardest achievement in life.
Yes.
Because I think it really demands us to ask what is essential, and what is not.
Why a lot. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when we were designing the space, and for those that haven't visited Brewery Bhavana, you notice immediately that this is not where the production facility is, right?
Right.
And for so long, I think as the industry, as long as you see stainless steel tanks, that's a brewery.
Yeah.
But when you don't have stainless steel tanks to rely on, it asks you critically and deeply, so what is a brewery?
Yeah.
And I think for us, a brewery without stainless steel tanks to rely on, it's really about community building. It's really historically, that's how it happened.
Yeah.
It's where people get together, and how do we create a space that honor the connections that happen without the distraction of the big screen TVs and the giant tab handles. So this space is really about honoring that spirit of human connections that a brewery stands for and represents.
One of the things that the community and the dialogue and the discourse and the relationships that you're trying to foster are so, I think that's another part that's so, every day it's becoming more and more important in our culture to have those things, because particularly with these devices that you and I have sitting here, there's so much discourse and toxic discourse going on with two thumbs and a screen and social media, the back and forth, it's horrifying, and I find that it's so much easier for people to be mean or ugly or distrustful, when you're not in front of the person, right? The things that you might type, even in a text, are so different than what happens when you're sitting in front of somebody, looking in their eyes and speaking to them. That's a real, true, authentic human interaction, and it helps us relate to people so much better than and there's many good things about the connectivity we have today, but it's becoming more and more concerning to me, what that can do to our sort of our discourse as a society. So I guess this is a very long-winded way of saying I really enjoy now, and I'm learning to appreciate now more, just the time to sit and talk to people. People I know, people I don't know, and that happens really in hospitality. That's where that's where we can all. Where else do you do that? You don't, particularly not with a diverse cross section of people. I mean, typically, if you're if you're at work, gosh, in corporate America, you're around a lot of people that have the same agenda and objective and so on and so forth. You don't find that diversity anywhere else.
Yes.
And it's almost like I wish I could go like to a place like this where they literally force you to, like, you can't smoke in here. How about just take the cell phone and drop it in a bucket on the way? And if you want to use it, remember how you used to have to go outside to smoke? Like, maybe you have to go outside to use your cell phone so that you're forced to have that. I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just saying that, like, I almost need that sometimes because I feel like this thing can be such a distraction. It's hard to pull away from it. But when I do, when I'm able to, it's just, that's a part of mental health now. Don't you think?
I completely agree. And I think it's the technology, the negative impact of technology, acknowledging that they're positive. I think everything has become so polarized too. And,
yes.
We are going through a season of leadership crisis.
Yeah.
And everything get really polarized to the point where we no longer see the gray spaces. We don't see the details of the policy that we are talking about, the impact it has on real people. And that's why I love what we do. That's why I love what we do, because opening a restaurant is an extremely political act. Because you in a local scale, in places that impact the most, you put people who are different in one place. You humanize every single topics that you can imagine. It's all surfaced in a restaurant.
Yeah.
Immigration, LGBTQ rights, city planning, gentrification, all of those things touch and overlaps at restaurants.
Yes.
And it's almost impossible to not see the humanity of all of those different topics in this setting.
Yeah.
Because you get to witness lives at restaurants. You get to feel the culture of where those people and places are coming from.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier to you of wanting to really focus on storytelling of our staff. We have over 200 staff now, and every single time I get to have a glass of wine with my staff, I'm completely in awe of their courage and the complexity and the diversity of their stories. And again and again and again and again, I say, imagine if my guests, if our community get to hear those stories too.
Totally.
Then you would think about immigration differently. You would think about city planning differently. And so you're right. Restaurants are one of those rare spaces that exist that still offer a small glimpse into a humanity of a place. Mm-hmm. And without that, all we see are these polarized checkbox that, okay, are you pro-choice or are you pro-life?
Right.
Are you pro-development or pro-neighborhood? But that's not how communities work. So I'm so proud that this is the kind of work that we get to do, that what we are serving is not just food and drinks, but what we are telling is a story of a place and the people that they came from that is so relevant to where we are in the world right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I hope you find the time and the means and the mechanism to tell some of those stories, and we'll definitely help. Like, and Luke can come help us out. This is what you and I are doing right now. I mean, this is the best part of what I do with our business. It's amazing to me to sit down and just talk and share stories and learn and get to know the people that it's a blessing to have the opportunity to do this. I would literally do this every single day, all day long, if I had the time and the ability to travel and do it. But I really love these opportunities because this is what hospitality is really all about. It's not just part of it is welcoming your guests in here and treating them as if they're in your home. But it's also building a relationship with your team as if they live in your home and they are your family. Who do we love more than anybody in the world? Our family. But that's the kind of relationship that you're building, and those kinds of relationships, the byproduct is the great experience for the guest. But this is what you're talking about, building this foundation of things that they flow through to a great experience for the guest.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing, Van. What else has been on your mind lately?
What a question, right?
Let me ask you this. Here's a deep one. It's one I heard recently. I didn't even know how to answer this, so you may not. You may, though, because you're very dialed into this. But how is your soul?
How's my soul? Wow, that is definitely a
Couch that with you got to a point where you didn't feel, and maybe the soul is the wrong word, because maybe what is a soul? But you didn't feel joy at that moment when you would have thought, and when everybody around you probably thought Van is on top of the world.
Yes.
Okay. And you've made a commitment in your life to make some change. Where are you now? Deeply, emotionally?
I feel a sense of purpose. I feel extremely empowered in my ability to construct the kind of infrastructure and foundation to live the kind of life that is centered in joy and harmony and balance. This is new. This is new as an immigrant, as a gay person, as a young person in the workspace that it's really complex. Feeling empowered, it's a new feeling for me. Believing that I can create changes in my own personal life for certain product to be possible, because I'm so used to right. I'm so used to focus my energy and attention on everyone else, and that is a part of survival when you are an immigrant, and when you arrive to a new community by yourself at the age of 12, you learn to be nice and be kind and really care for people around you as a way to survive. And
never thought of it that way.
And I never really had to, or I never had the time or the intention of focusing my energy on myself and feeling like that is important. So this is a really new, great place for me to realize that me working on my health and my balance and my joy is equally as important as caring for everyone and everyone else.
This has been a cascading thing for you, I think, because, well, first of all, this is the whole, the metaphor of when you're on the plane and you've got a kid with you. When the oxygen drops, you have to take it. Your instinct is to put it on your kid.
Yes.
I have 3 kids. That's exactly what I would want to do. And I pray I'm never in that situation. I hope if I ever were, I would know it's actually selfless, not selfish, to take care of yourself so that you can empower yourself to take care of those that you love.
Correct.
The instinct is them, and then you wear yourself down. You're not able to give anymore, and that's only a road to. That's not sustainable, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You found that, but I say it's cascading because, you mentioned being an immigrant and you mentioned being a gay man, and I was, I think it was like right before we started filming that film that you told me that that you had publicly come out with that. So this was only 2 or 3 years ago. Tell me about that. I didn't know, what that was a monumental issue in your life to do that. So I'm curious what that felt like and what's happened since then, and how because these things, it's almost like you talked about removing things, like you're almost removing maybe some of these emotional burdens.
Yes.
Right? And the more you do, the more joy you're able to feel. Is that right?
Absolutely.
And by the way, let me do this. So Lauren has been texting me. I want to make sure, because we're going to eat at Bida Manda. Let's see here.
I love how live this is.
Oh, yeah. This is all. No, we did it. That's all right. All right. She may be. Okay, cool. I think she's going to be there. Okay, good. She hasn't been feeling 100%. So. Okay. So that was a lot to take and then divert us into figuring out when my wife's going to be here for lunch, so I apologize. But that's a really important thing I wanted to ask you about.
Yes, it has been a really great journey for me. I think my coming out story is quite unique because I have been fortunate to have such a loving community, friends and family and mentors that I never was really afraid that I would be unloved if it were to come out. I just never got to a place where I myself accepted myself. So it wasn't that other people were not accepting me, it was myself not giving me the permission to be who I am.
Okay.
So I think my process was delayed because of my self-care and self-love, it go along with that theme of caring for myself. I just never needed or thought I needed to come out. But what was really important for me over the past few years is that I think I have an opportunity to be someone's role model, and I want to make sure that people, our community member, especially our young ones, get to see a gay story that is different than what is told on the mainstream media.
Yeah.
I'm just a normal person that believe in this community, that work really hard for my team, and that believe that the world is kind and generous, and I'm optimistic, and I care a lot about different things. So that too is a gay story. That too is a human story. And
Sure.
I think often in this community we like to exaggerate and polarize the narrative that we are telling. So I want to make sure that my story it's open and public, so that people feel and like this is a part of the community too.
Well, you I don't remember where I heard this initially, but it's something I've really come to believe, is that there's really two core primary emotions, which are love and fear.
Mm-hmm.
And what stems from that are all these other emotions, but those are the core. So maybe if you're removing anything that may be driven from fear, you have nothing left but love, right? So maybe
Mm-hmm.
you didn't come out, there was some, you didn't want to accept it, but when you start asking why,
Mm-hmm.
you probably would get to fear at some
Yes.
point, right? Like if you go enough levels of why. So the more of those things that you remove, again, we talk about subtraction here, there's addition by subtraction, right? You're removing that and
Mm-hmm.
allowing some emotions and feelings and parts of your life that are driven from love to fill the
Yes.
gap. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Dr. King spent a lot of time talking about the opposite of love. It's not hate, but fear. He talked about agape kind of love, right?
Yes.
Love that is without fear.
Yep.
And I think when we are in the season of love, we are in a season of abundance, and the ability for us to make creative, empowered choices that based on generosity and kindness are possible. But when we exist in the season of fear, we tend to be smaller in how we think about who we are and our capacity in the world, and we tend to be afraid, and we tend to, it's really a natural process, of seasons and of change, and of when animals and when humans are in the season of abundance, like spring, more is coming. So we
Yes.
are able to be generous and kind and sharing, right?
Yeah.
If we are in a season of abundance. But when we are afraid that things are dying and things are, then I think that's when we shrink, and then we look after ourselves and not the greater good. So I hope that, what this season in my life is really living in a season of abundance, and hope that good is coming.
Absolutely. Amen. Absolutely. It's funny you mentioned Dr. King. I was sitting here thinking of that as we were talking. So yesterday on the way up here, I had two of my 3 kids. My wife drove up separately and brought the other, but my 15-year-old daughter and my 12-year-old son. And I asked them, I said, have you ever heard Dr. Martin Luther King's speech? And they said, yeah, we've heard it in school. And I said, okay, what did it mean? Well, and I, you know what, we're going to listen. It was on I was actually listening to a podcast, and during that episode, that speech was played in entirety. And I said, we're going to listen to it again. Just turn your devices off and we're going to listen. And we then talked about, what that meant afterwards. But that I've really come to truly understand and respect his approach, because this podcast I was listening to, it's couched with, his movements started, and then it was countered with another philosophy that was based more on anger and violence and fear.
Yes.
And it's really, but what truly endured, this was 50 years ago. What's endured is and what is working and has worked and will work is love. Comes from love. That's it. That's the only way. It's the only way to change. It's the only way to grow and evolve and become better. It's all through love.
Yeah.
Every bit of it.
I think he really understood the power of hope.
Yes.
Especially for communities that are struggling. I think hope is the things that feels like breathing that we need. And if we don't have that hope, we will respond to life because of fear.
Yes.
That I think what he was able to do during that whole movement is that he asked for people to show up for themselves.
Yeah.
I think he, provide hope in a way that people saw a chance to be hopeful about the future, and people show up to see that day for themselves.
Well, he even told his folks, he said, look, we're not going to hate the people that hate us. They often, they've grown up being taught something that it's been instilled and reinforced constantly their entire life. We have to show them a better way, and we have to educate them and show them a better way. But if we respond in kind, nobody wins. It's an amazing. I mean, he almost had an inhuman ability to withstand all this hate and just rise above it. There's a point where you just got your natural instincts where you want to fight back, and push back, and he did. It's really an amazing story. It truly is. I mean, that speech is probably the best speech in American history, I would think. Well, listen, wow, we've covered a lot of stuff, man.
We talk about joy and Dr. King and self-care.
Yeah, but it all comes back. I mean, this is what it's really all about. It's this in all of this. This is true in any line of business, but particularly in hospitality. You just have such a responsibility in your community to provide a place where people can come and feel at home, they can feel at peace, they can feel safe, they can feel loved, they can feel something special they can't get anywhere else. They can feel that they can connect with others. You and your team at Brewery Bhavana and at Bida Manda, you're doing an amazing job. I mean, there's nobody that comes in here that I've ever talked to that hasn't just said there's just something special about being there. So keep doing what you're doing, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think they felt hope. Perhaps.
I think they felt hope, whether they're conscious of it or not. That's what they're feeling. So we're gonna figure out a way. Let's tell these stories.
Okay.
These stories are awesome. We need to tell them. You're right, because that connection is just, it's authentic, it's real, and it takes that emotional connection that your guests may have, even ones that have been here a lot, to just a totally different level.
Yes.
So it makes it so meaningful for them and for you and for your team. We're going to do that. Let's figure that out.
Let's do it.
So so I think Lauren's probably parking at this point, and I want to go enjoy some Bida Manda. It's been a while since I've eaten there, so we'll call this a wrap, folks. Gosh, thank you for listening, and what a cool conversation, Van. Thanks for taking the time to do this, man. This is really I don't know how to express how I feel right now, but I just feel very thankful and full of joy that we got to do this.
Yes, thank you. It's an honor.
Absolutely. All right, that's a wrap.